3 years ago, I was working 12-hour days, constantly exhausted, yet falling further behind on my goals. My breaking point came when I collapsed from burnout during an important presentation. That's when I realized I wasn't failing because I wasn't working hard enough. I was failing because I was working wrong. Through that rock bottom moment, I discovered the counterintuitive productivity approach that successful lazy people use to achieve more in 4 hours than most achieve in 40. The 2-minute rule I'm about to share eliminated 70% of my daily tasks and doubled my output, transforming not just my career, but my entire relationship with work. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to accomplish everything on their to-do list while barely breaking a sweat? They're not superhuman, they've just discovered the paradox I'm about to reveal. We've been sold a dangerous myth about productivity. From childhood, we're conditioned to believe that success requires constant hustle, endless to-do lists, and sacrificing sleep. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor, equating busyness with effectiveness. I'm so busy has become our modern status symbol, but this mindset creates a destructive cycle where we mistake motion for progress. Here's the shocking truth that productivity gurus don't want you to know. Working harder isn't. Research has consistently shown that after approximately 55 hours of work per week, productivity doesn't just plateau, it actually plummets. Those extra hours you're putting in, they're likely making you less effective, not more. You might as well be staring at a wall. The fundamental issue lies in how our brains are wired. Our dopamine reward system directly impacts how we approach tasks, especially those we perceive as overwhelming or unpleasant. When faced with such tasks, our brain's natural resistance kicks in, not because we're inherently lazy, but because we're experiencing genuine discomfort. This resistance makes traditional time management advice fundamentally flawed for those of us who struggle with procrastination. This is where the concept of strategic laziness comes in, a counterintuitive approach that might just transform your relationship with productivity. Instead of fighting against your natural tendency to avoid effort, strategic laziness channels this tendency into creating systems that require minimal willpower. It's about working smarter, not harder. Consider the most successful people you admire. They aren't necessarily the ones putting in 80-hour weeks. Rather, they're masters at eliminating busy work and focusing exclusively on high-impact activities that drive meaningful results. They've discovered that effectiveness isn't about doing more. It's about doing the right things and ruthlessly eliminating everything else. Instead of the exhausting productivity hamster wheel that leaves you feeling perpetually behind, consider implementing the R.E.S.E.T method. This evidence-based approach starts with reminding yourself of your big picture goal, which connects your immediate tasks to your larger purpose. Next, evaluate your perspective on the task. Is your resistance coming from legitimate concerns or merely discomfort? The third step involves offering yourself self-compassion rather than harsh criticism, which research shows actually improves motivation rather than diminishing it. The final components involve exploring different solutions to approach the task and implementing time management steps that break overwhelming projects into manageable chunks. This systematic approach works because it acknowledges and works with your brain's natural tendencies rather than against them. What makes this approach so powerful is that it doesn't require superhuman discipline or endless reserves of willpower. Instead, it's about creating an environment and system where productivity becomes the path of least resistance. When properly implemented, taking action actually requires less mental energy than procrastination. Think about it this way. Why do lazy people often accomplish more than hard workers? Because their natural aversion to unnecessary effort forces them to find the most efficient path forward. They instinctively cut through busy work to focus only on what truly matters. They're not avoiding work, they're avoiding wasted work. This strategic approach to productivity represents a fundamental shift in how we think about getting things done. Instead of viewing your tendency to avoid effort as a weakness, what if it's actually your greatest strength? What if your procrastination isn't a character flaw, but a signal that You're approaching tasks in a way that doesn't align with your brain's natural functioning. When you stop fighting your natural tendencies and instead leverage them as superpowers, a remarkable transformation occurs. You'll find yourself accomplishing more meaningful work in less time, experiencing less stress, and having more energy for the things that truly matter in your life. What if your brain's resistance to certain tasks isn't sabotaging your productivity, but actually contains the blueprint for overcoming it? The moments when you least want to start working hold valuable clues about how your unique neural pathways operate. And once you decode this pattern, you can build a productivity system that feels almost effortless. That feeling of resistance when you face a challenging task isn't a character flaw. It's actually your brain sending you critical signals about how it prefers to work. Most of us interpret this resistance as laziness and try to force ourselves through it with pure willpower. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Willpower is a finite resource that depletes rapidly, especially during periods of stress or fatigue, precisely when we need productivity the most. Instead of fighting against your brain's natural tendencies, what if you could build a system that works with them? This is where the 2-minute rule becomes transformative. Developed by productivity expert David Allen, this approach is deceptively simple, yet extraordinarily powerful. If a task takes less than 2 minutes to complete, do it immediately. No scheduling, no list making, no delay, just immediate action. This isn't just about clearing small tasks. What's happening on a deeper level is that you're creating immediate momentum. Each time you complete a 2-minute task, you're proving to your brain that taking action isn't as painful as anticipated. This builds a proactive mindset that gradually extends to larger projects. For people who habitually avoid small, tedious tasks, this rule breaks the cycle of procrastination before it can take hold. But what about those larger, more complex projects that seem impossible to start? This is where micro-gate setting becomes your secret weapon, rather than facing the intimidation of a massive project. Break it down into ridiculously small, achievable steps. We're talking about tasks so tiny that they seem almost laughable, writing a single paragraph, sending one email, or researching for just 5 minutes. What makes micro-get setting so effective is its alignment with your brain's reward system. Each completed micro-gate triggers a dopamine release, creating a positive feedback loop that builds motivation naturally. You're essentially tricking your brain into craving productivity rather than forcing it through sheer discipline. This works because of something psychologists call the Zeigarnik effect. Unfinished tasks continue to occupy space in our minds, gently nudging us toward completion once we've started. Decision fatigue is another major roadblock to productivity that often goes unrecognized. Every choice you make throughout the day, from what to wear to which task to tackle first, depletes your mental energy. By the time you face important decisions later in the day, your cognitive resources are already drained. This is where environment optimization becomes crucial. Creating an environment designed for automatic productivity eliminates countless small decisions. Prepare your workspace the night before, lay out your exercise clothes if you plan to work out, or pre-pack your lunch. These simple actions remove friction points that would otherwise drain your decision-making ability. Your environment should make the productive choice the path of least resistance. When your running shoes are already by the door, you're much more likely to go for that morning jog. Task batching takes this efficiency to another level. Instead of constantly switching between different types of activities, which forces your brain to repeatedly adjust to new contexts. Group similar tasks together, process all your emails at once, make all your phone calls in a single block, or handle all your creative work during your peak energy hours. This conservation of mental energy is substantial. Your brain stays in a consistent mode rather than wasting resources on constant context switching. What simple 2-minute habit eliminates 80% of your mental clutter? Immediately handling any task that takes less than 2 minutes creates momentum and prevents small tasks from becoming psychological burdens. This one practice alone can transform your relationship with productivity, shifting you from a reactive to a proactive mindset. When small tasks no longer pile up, your mental bandwidth expands dramatically, allowing you to focus on high-impact work without the constant nagging of unfinished business. So here's the truth about achieving more while doing less. It's not about gritting your teeth and pushing harder. It's about building sustainable systems that align with who you really are. And science confirms what the lazy among us have intuited all along. Making just one meaningful change at a time dramatically increases your chances of success. Research published in the European Journal of Social Psychology reveals that forming a new habit takes between 21 and 66 days on average. This isn't a quick fix, it's a gradual rewiring of your neural pathways. When you try to overhaul everything at once, you're fighting against your brain's natural adaptation process. That's why your mission starting tomorrow isn't to revolutionize your entire life. Instead, select just one technique we've discussed today and implement it consistently. The transformation happens not when you force yourself to work harder, but when you recognize that your so-called laziness might actually be your subconscious pushing you toward efficiency. You haven't been failing at productivity, you've been using the wrong system for your unique wiring. The moment you reframe that perspective is when everything changes.